Hey guys, BreadGod Gaming here, hope you're having a good day. This video overviews how to create a custom character and showcases some of my personal builds. We can use custom rulers to do fun and amazing things, like this charismatic Viking build that can make the Empire of Scandinavia in 10 to 15 years. To create a custom ruler, choose your desired start date, and at the bottom left, click Create Your Own Ruler. I can select any realm I want to play as the top liege, or I can zoom in to play as a vassal. Then at the bottom right, we're going to click Create Our Own Ruler. Before building a ruler, I like to consider what I want to do, like forming a specific kingdom or empire. If I'm not sure, I like to look at the CK3 Wiki's decisions page to see what cool ones I can go for. Then when I've decided what I want to do, I'll select the realm I want to play, and now I will decide how to do it, like becoming the most likable Viking or the most powerful warlord. If I'm not sure what to do or how to do, I recommend long-living rulers with good congenital traits as a long-term investment. This is because the skills and most traits of a custom ruler are not passed on to our children, except for these congenital or inheritable traits. At the top left here, we can pick our gender and our sexuality. In default settings, a male ruler has the advantage. Men are fertile their entire lifetime, so you can delay having kids and or be able to have kids if you play as an older character, versus females are only fertile until 45 by default, or 50 with fecund, meaning you need to start with an heir as an older female. With default gender rules, most realms are male dominated, so a female ruler gets a -10 opinion. However, attraction opinion, like the beautiful trait, can counteract that penalty until they are 50 years old. Heterosexual or bisexual is usually the most optimal, since most faiths will shun or criminalize homosexuality. Also, since most characters are hetero, you have a bigger pool of candidates to seduce or romance from, and having a lover or soulmate can give prestige or special events with buffs. For faith, we can start with the goal-based religion, like Hellenism for Roman Empire flavor. By default, Hellenism is a dead religion, meaning no counties in the world follows it, which increases the cost to convert to it. We can also pick a faith based on their tenets, like Asatru with their warmonger, which allows for continuous conquering. Although it could be strong, if you're surrounded by hostile faiths, you could be targeted by holy wars. Therefore, if you're not sure, the faith in the region you want to play is usually fine. Another bonus is Catholicism tends to unlock crusades earlier, and participating in one will provide land for your dynasty and earn you lots of prestige, gold, and piety. For culture, unlike faiths, there is no way to convert to a dead culture, like Roman culture for example. To prevent losing the culture, make sure to convert a county to that culture with your steward. An advantage here is when converted, you will be ahead of culture, so you can control the innovations and the traditions. And the tip is to promote the culture in the highest development place for faster research speed. You can also go for cultures for their strengths, like Norse with its strong men-at-arms and ability to raid overseas, Basque culture for high partition tradition, Czech culture for earlier house seniority innovation. But if you have Royal Court DLC, this lets you hybridize your culture, which can let you play anywhere with any culture. Again, if you're not sure what culture to pick, just stick with the local culture. We can change the dynasty coat of arms and motto and title coat of arms. We can change our appearance to a high degree, which I'm not good at. There is a subreddit called CK Tinder where people post their creations, like Silent Spy Zero posted Chris Hemsworth here. To put this in game, scroll down and we're going to look for the DNA code. When we click on the link, it should start with ruler designer here. We're going to copy this entire thing here. Then we're going to go back to the game and then change appearance, paste DNA, and we get Chris in game. At the top right, this customization bar is important if you want to have achievements available. The limit is 400 points, and you can see a point breakdown by hovering over here. I decrease everything to get started. For age, we can pick from 0 to 120. The point cost varies, with 24 to 28 being the costliest, with 0 cost as a baby and also 0 cost as a 70-year-old. Depending on our age, we are given different starting health and starting perk points. From this table, we can see age 47 and 65 are nice breakpoints to minimize point cost and maximize perk points. You need 9 perk points to complete a tree, and starting out with 1 finished is very strong. The type of perks you get are dependent on which category of education you've picked. but once we're in, we can pick any lifestyle we would like and still spend the points in that category. Another cool reason for playing older characters is if we create a character who is at least 42 years old, even if we don't add anything else, when we start with this girl, we'll actually have a free lifestyle trait. And that goes back to this age table. And starting at age 69 and older, we can get 2 free traits. So this character is 70. You'll see I haven't picked any lifestyle traits. But when I start with him and I look at him, you'll see I've gotten 2 free martial lifestyle traits. So older rulers can actually be pretty good. When starting off as someone older, it's important to incorporate health boosting traits and or the whole body tree to live longer. I did some math on Excel so you don't have to. On average, a baby will live to 63. A 47-year-old will live for about 23 more years, which is decent. At 48 and older, it's super important to get health boosts. A custom 70-year-old without any health buffs will on average die in 2 to 3 years. So for anyone over 48, you should get some health buffs, which I'll go over again later. Weight does matter, and being obese or underweight will give a health penalty, making you die faster, so stay somewhere in the middle. For education, again, it matters for which starting perks you get and can be a source to maximize skill value. If you have the Wards and Warden DLC, you can save points since you can attend university to level up your education. If you start with a child ruler, we'll get a free education trait when we hit 16. Of the level 5 educations, I think only 2 are worth it in the early game. The level 5 diplomacy education gives 25 vassalization acceptance, which is one of only 2 sources in the game. The level 5 intrigue education gives 25 agent acceptance, which is also one of 2 sources, and uniquely gives +3 progress, making your schemes fire faster. Things like taxes are not that strong early game when you're already poor. For personality traits, some will cost more than others depending on their strength. Some will even be negative, giving back points, like lazy, but these can make gameplay a little bit harder. The game will also highlight which traits are virtues and sins for your chosen faith, but there will be no change to their cost. Before I get to this biggest section of traits, let's talk about skills. Each level of skill has a variable cost that increases rapidly, as you can see from the table here. To use this table, if we reset everything to 0, each point from level 1 to 4 will cost 2 points each, for a cumulative total of 8 points, versus from level 5 to 8, each point will cost 4 points, with a cumulative total of being 24. Each point of prowess is not as costly as skills. I named the column plus skill because the cost only factors in how many points you've added and not the actual amount. Let's say I'm a baby here with the lustful trait, which gives +2 intrigue. Although the skill level starts at 2, adding 1 level only costs 2 points, and that's because if you hover over it, the cost depends on the base skill level. So bringing him to 6 intrigue will only cost that 8 points. So in general, I would focus on getting personality and other traits first before adding points to skills. That way you can calculate the most efficient way to spend your points. In general, adding about 10 to 12 levels into a skill is a good sweet spot for cost efficiency. Like adding 10 levels costs 38 points compared to adding temperate, which only gives 2 levels, but it does have other stats. For other traits, this section has a huge list of traits, and the bulk of our points are usually spent here. Most of the traits are not inheritable unless it says congenital or it says can be inherited. Most of the traits are expensive for what they are because their stat bonus is not efficient or not useful, or you can get it in-game. Some examples: Shrewd gives +2 to all skills, but costs 50 points, and we just learned adding +2 to everything will only add up to 20 points, and we usually want to hyper-focus a custom ruler anyways. Or traits like Eager Reveler, which can be gained from just hosting a feast. In summary, we only want to spend our points on things that will really make a big impact. I'll briefly comment on each section of trait categories and point out my favorites. The aqua-colored traits at the top are lifestyle traits and can be gained from finishing a perk tree or specific events. Note that these perks do not stack, so if I pick one now, I have the Diplomat trait there, and if I click to get the Diplomat trait again, you won't get a second copy. So just save your point and pick something else. Diplomat gives a massive +23 total opinion, which is almost the same as +23 diplomacy. It's useful for builds that vassalize, which I'll have one later. Architect has discounts that are unique and can be good for a steward build. If you're playing a young female ruler in a male-dominated society, Seducer gives plus 40 opinion, so it's very efficient. Whole of body is pricier than other lifestyle traits, but it'll give a big health bonus. Health bonuses for custom characters are also doubled. I'll touch up on this again later. The 5 traits here are childhood traits and only obtainable for a toddler and older. Having one can improve the quality of your education, versus without it you won't get that little bonus. The red and green traits here are stress traits we normally get from stress levels in game. Flagellant, reclusive, and improvident refund points and are easy to manage. Some events can also get rid of some traits, like pilgrimages can get rid of flagellant. A hidden cost of inapathetic and comfort eater is with the wrong combination of traits, your weight will eventually swing to being obese or malnourished, so avoid these combos on the screen. I personally like Irritable as it gives easy stress relief, and I could dual targets I want dead with release anger interaction. Pro tip, Athletic and Journaler can be obtained through a random event if you're in the learning lifestyle, which I personally am infrequently, so I never spend for these traits. The next set of traits are health and disease traits, and generally we don't want them unless you really need the point refund. Make sure to avoid ones that are inheritable like the poxes or these congenital traits. Lunatic could be argued for a min-maxer trying to get the glass monument, but it's RNG and hard to get, so avoid it in general. One-eyed is a virtue in a Satru, so for 10 points it's very efficient to get. If you like gambling, sometimes a good court physician can cure the disease you have by picking the too late for caution. The next few traits are congenital traits that can be inherited. The first few are 3 categories of level traits relating to beauty, intelligence, and physique. Herculean is probably one of my favorite traits for custom characters. The health bonus for a custom character is actually doubled, but for their lifetime only. Normally Herculean gives plus 1 health, but if you start with it, you get plus 2 health, which is about 16 more years of life. For custom characters, I think it's better than Genius. Aside from the skills, Genius also gives 30% more lifestyle XP. With some math, a newborn baby will get about 14.11 perks over their life, versus a baby with Genius will earn 18.3 and a baby with Herculean will earn 18.8. But also the Herculean baby will live 16 years longer. That's my case for Herculean. Pure-blooded is hard to obtain naturally, so for a genetics program, starting off with it is very useful. Otherwise, it's an expensive health boost. Fecund increases your lifespan, but only the full 5 years if you're 25 or under. Otherwise, the benefit decreases rapidly with older rulers. Strong is my other choice of a health boost. It gives plus 1 with the double effect, which is 8 years of life at least, and it's cheaper than Herculean, so it's easy to fit into a build. Unfortunately, it does not get inherited. So to summarize some suggestions for different ages, when playing 47 or younger, adding strong is a cherry on top. That's not needed, but anyone 48 or older needs at least strong, and anyone 66 or older is best with Herculean or a few health boosts like strong and whole of body. Note that all these estimated death ages are just if you don't do anything extra to extend your life. The hunter trait and other things can be reliably gotten and extend your life even further. I have an entire video on how to extend your life if you'd like to watch it later. The next section here is all red congenital traits, and they're all really bad unless you want to do a challenge run, except for Giant, which although it's a negative trait, it costs points because it gives good stats for a tribal ruler. We have plus 10 tribal ruler opinion, and also most tribal realms all have glory hound vassals, so about a total of plus 20 opinion, and it's inheritable. After sterile, the next chunk of traits are other traits that are expensive for flavor only or more efficiently acquired in game, or outright bad. Be careful of these point refunds here. If I'm playing as a vassal, some of the traits can give your liege a reason to imprison and revoke your titles, ending your game early. So double check to see your faith's crime doctrines. Witch is OP if you can take the Witch Coven decision, as it will let you go on grand rite activities, which essentially gives you extra perks every 5 years. It can be hard to become a witch in game, and even harder to form a coven later in the game once your family size grows. Be careful again if you're a vassal and your faith criminalizes witchcraft. Disloyal is a great point refund, so I always get it. The orange traits here are commander traits, and only apply if you are the commander, so only get them if you plan to be a commander. You can also get a commander trait if you grow up with a martial education, or while through any martial focus, you can get random events that can teach you commander skills. Reaver is extremely nice for Viking raiders for its raid speed and reduced attrition. Holy Warrior is very efficient against hostile faiths since it gives plus 10 advantage versus other terrain bonuses are usually only plus 4 to plus 6, but it only applies to hostile faiths. At the end here, Holy Monarch is very expensive, and the other two are pointless. For family down here, you can be married, but there's no point since we want to control our marriage for alliances or genetics. For children here, you can add one child for 10 points for every year that you're above 16. So at 17, we can only have one child. At 18, we can have 2 children. If you get a congenital trait, your children can potentially inherit some traits. If you have multiple kids, it will also randomize which child will be which gender and age. You can also have as many kids as you can afford and start off with a big family. Now that we've overviewed the ruler designer, let me show you some builds and my thought process behind them. They might not be the strongest builds, but that's because everyone has personal preferences on how to play, and I also enjoy some flavor in my builds. My first build is my Emperor Thor, the Super Diplomat build. We can start in Upland or any of these Norse realms here. The goal here is to create a Viking empire using the offer vassalage mechanic. To maximize the vassalage chance, we want to be the same religion and culture. So it works best in areas with big uniform religion and culture, like in Scandinavia. Thor is 47 to get perks and to be an adult to vassalize others. The level 5 diplomacy's vassalization bonus will be crucial. We also need independent rulers to love us, so we're getting the diplomat trait for the massive opinion. One-eyed is super efficient for a virtue, and we'll get these 3 other virtues as well for another plus 37 total opinion. Flagellant and Disloyal are simply to get point refunds, and Strong is so we can live long enough. I then added as many points as I could squeeze into Diplomacy, which ended up being 10 levels. Then I put the rest of the points I could into Martial. Here's the total point breakdown. When starting in the game, we want to go for the Majesty focus, as we'll need a lot of prestige. We'll go down to the True Ruler perk for another plus 20 acceptance, and then down to Life of Glory for the doubled fame impact. Then we go to defensive negotiations for plus 15 independent ruler opinion, and Ducal Conquest for reduced title creation cost. Checking our neighbors, we can see they love us, and when offering vassalage, you might start off with this glitch. Just pass some time and the glitch should go away. Our current situation tab will be flooded with requests to join our Cool Kids Club. And while we are waiting for the applications to roll in, we'll use some raiders. We're going to raid Europe for some gold. After we vassalize all the Asatrian rulers, we'll convert to Ukonosko to vassalize the rest. On average, I can create Scandinavia in 10 to 15 years. And from here, you can take this Viking empire wherever you please. The next builds are for genetically superior Vikings. Instead of rapidly forming an empire, the goal here is to use our custom ruler to start a genetics program and eventually a witch coven to produce superhuman Vikings later in the game. For this build, I like to play as either a baby, a 47-year-old, or a 70-year-old. To start the genetics program, we go with the 3 level traits: Herculean, Quick, and Comely. I spend the extra points for Herculean because I like to live as long as possible. I add Strong for additional life, Disloyal and Flagellant for point refunds, Reaver to become a proficient raider. When possible, I fit One-Eyed just because it's cool and also strong, and Witch to eventually form a Witch Coven. I can go Martial or Learning to either live longer or have better warfare. Either way, because we're living so long, you should be able to finish enough perks in both trees. To compare the 3 ages, Baby Olaf has 8.1 health from the start and can expect 88 years of rule. His start will be harder but longer. Grandpa Olaf starts with 6.6 health and can expect to live 30 years. I normally choose learning education for whole of body for 8 more years of life, and for sanctioned loopholes, which lets me buy claims on empires and kingdoms. Prime Olaf also has 8.1 health but can expect to live for 47 years. He is the middle ground. For any age, don't forget to take the strengthened bloodline decision, which adds adds 0.25 health and buffs for genetics. Here's a mid-game state of a baby Olaf forming the Mongol Empire and taking over Europe. I have an in-depth guide on genetics on my channel if you need some tips. If you don't want to build a genetics program, this Viking build is highly focused for a strong commander with the goal of raiding or conquering. We're 15 and we're going to go for the rowdy childhood trait to get that martial education. We're going to get Reaver for raiding, Holy Warrior for the advantage, Strong for extra life, Disloyal for free points, Giant and One-Eyed because of flavor and it helps our tribal realm, Strategist because I like the trait Forder, and Strategist is Forder for 25 points and +3 Martial for 25 points, or about 8 points per Martial. Raider is to give us 2 Martial for 25 points because when I did the math and I added the rest of my points into Martial, I'm already at 19 base skill Martial, meaning each additional point is going to cost 17 points. So this was the most efficient way. Here's the full breakdown. When in game, don't forget to get someone to educate you so that you have a better martial education. As a 16-year-old, I can have 40 advantage as a commander or 50 against a hostile faith. Most beginning commanders only have like 15 to 20 advantage, meaning my Viking Warlord can have a 20 advantage difference, which translates to a 40% increase in troop damage, and this will only increase as I grow older for more perks in martial. You can juice it up even more if you marry a high martial wife and put her to chivalry, and now my base advantage is 50. With so much advantage, you can easily dominate fights that are close and slaughter them, or win battles that seem unlikely. The next build is a Master Assassin build, using intrigue to accomplish my nefarious plans. The Assassin build centers around the level 5 intrigue education, which gives increased agent acceptance and faster scheme progress. I'm 47, so I get some perks, and I can start murdering immediately as an adult. The Scholar trait also gives plus 10% hostile scheme success, which is basically 10 intrigue for 50 points. Flagellant and Disloyal for the point refunds, and Strong and Robust to live as long as possible, and 9 levels to intrigue and the extra to diplomacy. Here's the total breakdown. One example of how a Master Assassin build can be used is to form the Archduchy of Austria. In 1066, we take over the Duchy of Austria. When we're in game, we want to go to the Skullduggery focus here for increased agent acceptance. We go down this entire schemer tree. Kidnapper lets you abduct people. A job done right, swift execution, and schemer itself will give increased hostile power, and twice scheme lets you run 2 schemes at a time, and truth is relative to enable fabricating hooks. You can then work down the torturer tree. We then fabricate hooks on the Pope so that he can help us get a claim on the duchies that we need. Once we get a hook from the Pope, you can now request a claim. Then we use abductions, and we can instantly win this war without any bloodshed. We can also abduct persons and then ransom them for lots of gold. And after 20 years, we are able to raise the Archduchy of Austria, all without direct war. From here, we can continue our shadowy conquests, or put our children into the succession lines of other kingdoms, or destabilizing them by putting a child ruler onto the throne. The world will learn to fear your dynasty. My last build is more of a fun build than a meta build. I dub it the Mother of Rome build. Starting as the vassal of the King of Italy in Spoleto, Venus is the most desirable woman in the world. The goal here is to use this seductress to convince the world we should own Rome, and then create the richest realm to restore the Roman Empire thereafter. We start off as a fresh 20-year-old. Of course, we need Roman culture to be the Mother of Rome with level 2 education. Since Roman culture has hereditary hierarchy, so level 1 education will give a penalty. Compassionate and honest are cheap virtues. Seducer, beautiful, and gallant will give a total of plus 90 attraction, which will last until we're 50. Strong, so we'll live longer. Disloyal for the point refund. I had 1 remaining point for stewardship, and 4 children here to get alliances, and 1 son for inheritance. Here's the total breakdown here. What's also cool about Roman culture is with notable adoption, you can technically start with 0 kids and simply adopt everyone for free, but it'll take some time, so I need my children at game start to get the biggest alliances. We'll see that the kings of the nearby realms love us, and we can arrange a marriage with our daughters to their sons, and they will accept. Once we have the alliances and the claim on Rome, I can have my allies help me take over Rome. We can also use their help to become the Queen of Italy, and from here slowly build up our strength to reform the Roman Empire. Hopefully you've enjoyed the custom builds I have, and you learned some tips on how to create a strong but interesting ruler. I'll have a video following the playthrough of some of the builds available on my channel. If this video has helped you, please consider subscribing and liking this video, as it helps me tremendously, so thank you very much. You can check out my channel for other guides and leave a comment if you have any questions or want to see a specific topic discussed. Thanks again from BreadGod, and have a good day.